to our flagpole prayer service on the porch. Our scripture passage during Advent comes from the second chapter of Luke's Gospel. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no guest room available for them. Maria is going to share our morning reflection.
At the time of Jesus' birth, Caesar called for a census. Because Joseph was of the line of David, he had to return to the town of David, Bethlehem. Mary had legally pledged Mary to Joseph, so she belonged to the same town for the census. On the journey to Bethlehem, Mary had to endure obvious struggles that came with pregnancy, as well as being looked down upon for bearing a child that was not her husband's. The towns were overcrowded, leaving Mary with no choice but to bear the Messiah onto a manger. Nobody sympathized nor made room for the poor and pregnant woman. Mary did not choose to leave town, nor did she want to go into labor on such poor conditions. The government forced her out of her home. Today, people all over the globe flee their homes. Whether it is for new opportunities or to escape danger, people migrate every day. My parents left their home 20 years ago. My dad immigrated twice. Originally, he was born in Madrid, Spain, but when he was 8 years old, he had to move to Mexico City for his dad's job. This was difficult for him. He had developed a complete different way of life. His accent was very different from everybody else's, leading him to get teased till it faded. Years later, he married my mom, and his company decided to move them from Mexico City to Atlanta, Georgia. This changed their lives forever. My parents left their families and their friends, their homes too. They left their whole life in hopes for a better future. This was an extremely difficult transition. For starters, obviously the language barrier was a concern. Thankfully, they paid attention in English class. Then there was the very drastic culture shock. Everything was different down to the way they dressed. It's hard to believe, but people don't actually wear sweatpants outside of the house. That's just America. My parents had to remake their lives from scratch. They had no friends or family nearby. 2 years later, they moved to Miami, where they had my sisters and me. 13 years later, we all moved across the country and settled here. Change was obviously easier for me than it was for my parents to immigrate to a whole new country. But it's safe to say that change is never easy. It's hard to start over. It's hard to sit in a room filled with people and feel so alone. Mary and Joseph had to flee to a town where they were strangers. They had to get by with no one's support. What kept them going was their faith. When life completely shakes up, you have to hold on to the thought that everything happens for a reason, because at that point, it's all you've got. It's really easy to just stay comfortable in our circles and stay oblivious to the new people around us. We should put ourselves in their shoes. Imagine waking up tomorrow and being told you were going to have to move to another country and learn a whole new language. It's paralyzing. Being such a diverse country, you would think everybody would be welcoming. But unfortunately, every day people get ignored and are told they don't belong. Immigrants will feel they never belong anywhere. In Spain, my dad's considered too Mexicanized. In Mexico, my parents are considered too Americanized, yet here they're still considered too Mexicanized. Let's make room in our hearts for Jesus this Advent by opening our eyes to the people around us and embracing our diversity.